Why most investors fail. The 30% return blueprint. How to build real wealth. Pay close attention because I'm about to reveal something that will fundamentally transform your relationship with building wealth. My name is Kevin O'Leary, and throughout my career spanning several decades, I've launched numerous enterprises, backed hundreds of ventures, and converted modest stakes into substantial financial empires. What I'm going to reveal today is the precise blueprint that's enabled both myself and those I mentor to consistently generate 30% annual gains, year in and year out. But before we unlock the vault, there is a small toll to pay, a simple exchange of energy. I need you to hit that subscribe button. Join this brotherhood, this inner circle. Why does that matter? Because the signal I'm broadcasting right now isn't the static you hear from the rest of the world. It isn't the vanilla paint-by-numbers advice you get from a bank teller who's clocking out at 5. It isn't the recycled noise from the talking heads on the cable news networks. This is the raw, unpolished steel of truth, forged in the fires of actual experience. This is the voice of someone who has walked through the fire and carried the gold out the other side. So, let's go deep. Let's descend into the engine room of wealth. Do you want to know the most dangerous fairy tale ever told in the world of money? It's the sedative, the whispered lie that you should be happy, grateful, even for a meager 7 or 8% growth every year. Your standard issue financial advisor, the one reading from a script, tells you to park your cash in a massive index fund, close your eyes, and wake up in 30 years hoping you have enough to survive. That is absolute garbage. That is a strategy designed for the sleepwalkers. It is a roadmap for people who refuse to think, who recoil from the grind, who have made peace with being invisible. I refuse to be invisible. And looking at you, I know you don't want to fade into the background either. You didn't click this link to be average. You are here because you have a hunger to dominate, and domination requires you to deafen your ears to the mediocrity that keeps the masses poor while the few get rich. Here is the cold, hard reality that they won't tell you at a cocktail party. Hitting that 30% mark every single year is not a fantasy. It is entirely achievable. But, and this is a massive but, it demands that you do what others are too terrified to do. It requires a discipline that borders on obsession. You have to treat your mind like a fortress and your capital like a soldier. Money is not a toy. It is not chips at a casino table meant for a thrill. It is a tool of war. I have watched armies of people treat the stock market like a neon-lit slot machine. They throw their hard-earned cash at the flavor of the week, some meme stock or digital coin that's trending on social media because a stranger promised them the moon. That isn't investing. That is setting your money on fire and hoping the smoke signals spell profit. That is speculation, and speculators always eventually bleed out. So, what is the antidote? What is the architecture of a 30% return? It starts by shattering one of the oldest idols in finance. Traditional diversification is a trap when you are in the trenches trying to build an empire. I know, it sounds like heresy. Every textbook tells you to spread your bets, to scatter your seeds so wide that nothing can hurt you. But here is the secret they bury. Diversification is a shield for the rich who just want to stay rich. It is a defensive crouch. If you are on the attack, if you are trying to build a mountain from a molehill, you cannot afford to dilute your power. You need concentration. You need the laser, not the floodlight. You need to find the asymmetric bets where the upside is virtually uncapped, and then you need to strike with everything you have. Let me paint you a picture from my own history. When I started my first software company, I didn't have a portfolio. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have a plan B. I poured every ounce of my energy, every dollar, every waking moment into that one entity. I lived an 18-hour workday existence. My diet was whatever came out of a microwave. I slept on a couch in the office that smelled of stale coffee and ambition. It was brutal. It was singular. And the result? I sold that company for a fortune. That is the power of the laser. That is what happens when you refuse to blink. Now, I am not telling you to quit your job tomorrow and bet the farm blindly. Although, if you have the stomach for it, that might be exactly what the doctor ordered. What I am saying is that you must identify the high ground targets and commit to them. But don't mistake this for recklessness. Concentration is not closing your eyes and praying. It is the opposite. It is knowing one thing so well, studying the terrain so intensely that the risk evaporates because you see what others miss. You must know the numbers, the business, the heartbeat of the deal. The winners don't gamble. They calculate. They are snipers waiting for the perfect shot, and when they take it, they don't miss. So, before we go any deeper, I need a pulse check. I need to know you're still with me in this foxhole. If you believe you are worth more than a single-digit return, if you are ready to stop being a passenger in your own life and start driving the car, smash that like button. Leave a mark in the comments. Tell me your target. Where will you be in 5 years? If you haven't joined the ranks yet, subscribe now, because what comes next is the tactical map. I'm going to show you the specific battlefields where I fight, the weapons I use to hit that 30%, and the landmines that will blow your legs off if you aren't careful. We are just warming up. Now that you understand the philosophy of the sniper, let's talk about the targets. There are 3 specific arenas where I hunt for these returns. Listen closely, because the devil and the millions is in the details. The difference between a fortune and a bankruptcy is execution. The first arena is private equity. Now, when most people hear those words, they picture guys in $1,000 suits in Manhattan high-rises. They think the door is locked to them. That is old thinking. The gates have been kicked open. Thanks to new laws and platforms, you can now sit at the table. I'm talking about early-stage companies, the hungry startups, the businesses that are desperate for fuel to ignite. When you catch one of these rockets before it leaves the launch pad, the returns can make the stock market look like a piggy bank. But you have to be a detective. You can't just throw darts. You have to look the founders in the eye. You have to tear apart their business model. I've backed hundreds of companies on Times, Shark Tank Times, and beyond. And I will tell you, for every unicorn, there are 10 carcasses. You need to find the team that has done it before, the product that solves a bleeding neck problem, and a path to profit that doesn't require a miracle. I don't invest in magic. I invest in math. The second arena is real estate. But I'm not talking about buying a nice little house and hoping the market goes up. I'm not talking about the HGTV fantasy of flipping houses. I'm talking about heavy machinery, commercial real estate, warehouses, apartment complexes, shopping centers. Assets that bleed cash flow every single month. When you buy a building that pays you 12% just for owning it, and then you add the appreciation of the dirt and bricks, you are looking at a monster return. And this is where you use the most powerful lever in the world, other people's money. If I put 20% down and the bank puts up the rest, my return on my times cash skyrockets. But leverage is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. If you are stupid with debt, it will decapitate you. You have to stress test the deal. What if the tenants leave? What if rates spike? If the deal still makes money in the worst-case scenario, you buy it. If not, you walk away. The third arena, and this is the holy grail, is the business you own and operate. This is where you are the captain. You control the rudder. You aren't waiting for a CEO to make a decision. You are the decision. If you can build a brand, manage the costs, and serve the customer, the returns are infinite. I've owned dozens of businesses, and the ones I ran with an iron fist returned multiples of my money, not percentages. But this is the hardest path. It requires blood, sweat, and tears. You have to be obsessed with the metrics. You need to know your customer acquisition cost like you know your own name. If you don't know your numbers, you are flying a plane in a storm with no instruments. You will crash. Passion is great, but passion doesn't pay the electric bill. Cash flow does. Here is the synthesis. The reason I hit 30% isn't because I bet it all on black. It's because I concentrate times within times these buckets, but I hold all 3. I have the explosive upside of private equity, the steady heartbeat of real estate cash flow, and the control of my own businesses. It's a tripod. It's stable, but it's aggressive. But there is a ghost in the machine, a silent killer. You can have the best strategy, the best assets, the best map. But if you lack the psychological armor, you will fail. The market is a cruel teacher. It does not care about your feelings. It does not care if you have rent to pay. It is a slaughterhouse for the emotional. The only way to win is to be cold. When the world is burning, when everyone is screaming and selling, that is when you walk in and buy. When everyone is partying and throwing money at garbage, that is when you sell. You have to be a contrarian. You have to buy when there is blood in the streets, even if it is your own. Discipline is the anchor. It means having rules written in stone. I never invest in something I don't understand. I never bet the farm on one hand, and I kill my losers fast. If I am wrong, I admit it. I amputate the limb, and I move on. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is for the hopeless. You need a plan, a written battle plan, criteria for entry, criteria for exit. When you have a plan, you don't panic. You execute. And we have to talk about the silent thief. Taxes. If you make $1 million and the government takes half, you didn't win. You have to play the game of defense as well as offense. I use every legal weapon in the arsenal to protect my capital. Depreciation, corporate structures, long-term holding periods. I hire the sharpest accountants and lawyers because they are not an expense. They are an investment. $1 saved from the taxman is $1 that stays in your army, fighting for you, compounding year after year. That is the secret of the dynasty builders. You cannot do this alone. The lone wolf starves in the winter. You need a pack. You need mentors, advisors, experts who are smarter than you in their fields. I didn't get here by being the smartest guy in the room. I got here by hiring the smartest guys in the room. If you are too cheap to pay for expertise, you will pay the price in mistakes, and that price is always higher. So we have the map. Private equity for growth, real estate for income, business for control, discipline to hold it together, a team to protect it. It sounds simple, right? But here is the tragedy. Most of you will watch this, nod your head, feel a momentary spark of motivation, and then go back to your life. You will go back to the savings account that pays zero. You will go back to the safe, slow lane. You will make excuses. I'm not ready. It's too risky. Do not be that person. The door is open. The path is lit. But you have to take the first step. You have to educate yourself, save your capital, and hunt for the deals. Time is the one asset you can never buy back. Compounding needs time to work its magic. The clock is ticking. So here is my challenge to you. If this has woken something up inside you, if you are tired of the anesthesia of average, take action. Hit the like button. Go to the comments and tell me, which arena are you stepping into? Are you going to hunt for private deals? Are you going to build a real estate empire? Or are you going to start your own business? I want to know. And join the channel. Become a member. Because I am going to keep feeding you the raw truth. No sugar, no fluff. Just the hard iron of reality. Let me leave you with one final thought. The thing that separates the titans from the tourists isn't IQ. It isn't a rich daddy. It is your relationship with risk. You have been brainwashed to fear risk, to hide from it, to color inside the lines. But the people who change the world, the people who build dynasties, they don't fear risk. They respect it. They measure it. And then they dance with it. I'm not talking about being a cowboy. I'm talking about calculated asymmetric risk, where the downside is a bruise, but the upside is a life change. That is the sweet spot. Most people stay on the shore because they are afraid of the waves, but the treasure is out in the deep water. You have to be willing to leave the sight of the shore. I learned this the hard way. I've missed deals that would have bought me islands because I hesitated. I let fear whisper in my ear. And watching someone else get rich on a deal you saw first, that is a special kind of hell. Regret is heavier than failure. Failure is a lesson. Regret is a ghost that haunts you. Change the lens. Stop asking, what if I lose? And start asking, what if I win? Because if you structure it right, the upside is infinite. If a startup fails, you lose your chips. If it hits, you own the casino. That is the math. And ironically, the safe path, the job, the pension, the slow lane is the most dangerous of all because you have zero control. One memo, one recession, and you are out on the street. That isn't safety. That is vulnerability masquerading as comfort. Real safety is owning the assets. Real safety is having 5 streams of income so that if one dries up, you don't thirst. That is the fortress. I know some of you are saying, Kevin, I have empty pockets. I can't play this game. Listen to me. We all start at zero. I didn't inherit an empire. I started with debt and a dream. I started with nothing but the refusal to be average. Your capital right now might be small, but your hunger must be large. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. But for God's sake, start.